morning. Welcome to Viewpoint. If I can get the microphone for a couple of minutes here. Program of personality, politics, and perspective.
Does it worry you?
Not too much. Not too much. We'll make this show work one way or the other. We're going to, as usual, we're going to start with some kudos. I'm going to give a multiple 2 or 3 or 4, more than one. Number one, if you'll recall, our good friend John Gazzardo once again stepped to the plate at Thanksgiving time and served, I don't know how many meals that they served, and the volunteers that do that, and one of the big volunteer groups this time to deliver the meals for John, who's cooked so nicely there in his restaurant, the Lincoln College baseball team.
Oh, is that right? And
that was pretty neat. The youngsters just didn't go home, stayed here on campus, and so kudos to number one, John and Frankie and Nick for doing such a great job there, as they always do. Mm-hmm. And kudos to our Lincoln College baseball team. Then this could be the season where you see somebody out there with a little red kettle standing in front of various business places around town.
Yep.
And those kettles just don't show up. They have to be taken there by somebody. And then they have to be manned by somebody. So thanks to the volunteers and the various organizations, Rotary and whatever organizations that get together and come up with some volunteers to, and we'll talk a little more about that in just a few minutes. But thanks to those volunteers. So I think that'll take care of the old man. I can shut up now and turn the program over to Mrs. Busby, who does much better.
Oh, piffle.
And messing things up.
Well, yes, I can mess things up if you want to believe it.
Pretty morning. Let's don't mess it up now.
Our guest today is Tony Shuff, and he has long been leading the Salvation Army here in Lincoln, but it's been here longer than Tony has by a bit.
Yes.
I'd like to know what year, did you say again that it began here in Logan County?
Well over 100 years ago, probably about 114 or so. I don't have the exact number.
And you thought it probably started down on the corner of Broadway and Logan?
I believe so. An old Courier, I don't know if it was Courier then, but an old article someone had given me, a reprint, a Xerox copy of that. Had some of those items of nostalgic information in there. They thought I would.
I get a little bit of tidbits of information from the past. They're kind of a fun read. Yeah, really. But I did read, I didn't read it. I checked out. I did a little research this morning about 6 o'clock when I was trying to come around.
Brag.
The Salvation Army began in 1865 over in London.
Yes.
That's I didn't know exactly when that was.
Right.
And since then, they've never stubbed their toe. They've just gone on honestly and in caring for people. They're a wonderful organization. Some of these who want you to please send a check for this and that and the other thing, you think, gosh, I don't know whether it really goes to that or not. But the Salvation Army, if they are ringing the bell at the red kettle, you know darn good and well every cent that goes in that kettle is going to be used for the programs.
That's right, Judy. If I could interject right there, many times one of the first questions people have for our bell ringers, so I like to inform them as they go out, hey, you may be asked, does this money stay here or does it go California, New York, Pennsylvania, or somewhere else? No, the money that's raised here stays here and is used to fund our budget locally. So that answers one of the biggest questions.
Is this your busiest season?
By far.
It is by far, because we have 2 or 3 irons in the fire simultaneously. We don't want to just receive and kind of pat people on the back as they go their way. We're busy also giving back out while we're receiving. So we have an Adopt a Family program that is like Angel Tree, and some families, some businesses, sometimes churches pitch in and say, do you have a couple families we can help at Christmas? And then we gather the information, and no specific information is gathered, like who gets what, but they get a wish list from a family that maybe has 3 children, and they're lower income family needing a little support at Christmas time. And so it's a boy, like 2 boys, 1 girl. Here are the ages. Here's their wish list of a few items. And then people can respond in kind. And then we will kind of connect the dots. So people can come and right before Christmas receive their gifts and then go home and have a lovely Christmas. So that takes as much coordination as the bell ringing and securing bell ringers and schedules of that. We're doing both at the same time, and that's just 2 of those irons.
How do you keep all the balls in the air?
In connection with that, the gentleman has his own business, Resilient Premier Cleaning Services, and I'll tell you one thing. That's hard work. I take my hat off to you. It's a serious note, Tony.
Thank you, sir.
If you're going to disturb commercial places like restaurants and other business houses that can't be disturbed during the day, it means you have to work all night. And
correct.
Tony calls them all-nighters. And those are pretty frequent. So I take my hat off. It's not an easy job. No. And the pictures I've seen, the results are outstanding. So
thank you.
Yeah.
If we're going to have a name like that, you better not leave it like it was.
Yeah, well, that's
exactly. I know you did some work at the Oasis, and they were very appreciative.
Yes. It was great to be asked. We're not quite done there. I still have to do what is termed back of the house, kind of the kitchen, hallway, and back there.
Just as a quick aside, do you ever do residences?
Over probably at least 60% of our work is just that.
Is that a fact?
Believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, I'll be there.
We're staying busy. We have about 10 of us working.
This is going to cost you this morning.
There you go. I'm getting gold.
I mean, you ain't getting out of here without your check. We're going to give you that kind of publicity. Seriously, back to the Salvation Army business. Sure. There's so many daily. There are requests in the mail for this charity or that charity, and each of us, we can only do, each and every of us want to support something. Some don't do anything. That's too bad for them. But you have to pick and choose. My point is that for the most of us, I think I speak for probably everybody, if they know the money's going to stay local, it makes it a lot easier.
That's
and Salvation Army money does stay local.
Right.
Now the kettles, are they the major source of your income at this time of the year?
It's the largest fundraiser we have, seasonal fundraiser. We continually do mail-outs. We have a mailing department, and we hope to get people's names along the way, and that they can receive reminders at different times when there's special needs. And so every couple weeks or so you might be getting something. Some people would like to say, just save the money, I'm going to give once a year a big check or do something. That's fine, but it's easier for us for just the pennies or 2 that it takes to mail to just keep you on the list, and if you have to throw them away, that's fine. But it's easier than switching the system all the time, adding people, taking people out. It's just easier to grow your database. We do clean up our mail service somewhat end of the year. Right now I'm getting letters that are returned, and maybe someone has deceased or they've moved. And so we pay for that service, service address correction, and we get that back. And so we do try and clean up that mail service, but that's another big part throughout the year. However, I heard just yesterday we had a divisional headquartered meetings right here in Lincoln about the work locally, and it was very pivotal discussion, but in that they did let me know that the mail requests throughout this last year have been considerably down, so we're relying pretty heavily on our red kettle this year. Thankfully, I know that the red kettle so far this year, where we are, which is almost the halfway point, is above where it was last year. So that's a plus. We have some great new volunteers since last year. I want to give my hat off to Kathy Moore and Bill Dolan, and they come in every day. They'll be in soon. at the Key Center. And Bill, he can't see, he's blind. He's out ringing bells for us. He's manning my office, taking phone calls, scheduling clients in, screening people. He knows all the questions to ask. Okay, where do you live? What's your name? You know, just go through and organize stuff for me. Now, Bill, radio station, WLLM.
Oh, is he the gentleman that has that Christian station out there on the highway?
Right. They continue programming, but not from here in Lincoln. So he's not working other than volunteering for me.
I see.
So he's just living by faith too, and trusting God, and his needs are being met wonderfully. But so I have to say,
that's a miracle story.
Oh, it's huge.
That he can do all that for you, and he is not sighted.
Right.
Notice how politically correct she was.
I'm sorry?
You notice how politically correct she was there? She was not cited. Some
yes,
people
better
just call
than...
No, I'm not going to do that.
No. You know, when you came in this morning, you handed us each a copy of the War Crime magazine. I haven't seen one of these forever.
Oh, my.
And they're very informative.
They are.
How long has it been since you see a little lady in a little black bonnet?
Well, in my misspent youth, I think was last time.
I was speaking off air out in the anteroom, as they say in the other studios or the big studios. We were talking about the days that I remember when in Lincoln, they were residents here. We had a little small group of Salvationists, and they would appear at Christmas time on the street corners, Kresge's corner in those days.
Right.
And then they go to the post office corner and wherever, and set up shop and play songs and their basic instruments and sing. And the kettle was there for people to use. And that kettle probably got pennies and nickels and dimes. That time. But those were, I'm sorry everybody doesn't realize that I'm old enough to remember a lot of things out there that are kind of near and dear to me, some of those little things like that.
Right.
Yeah, truly.
The red kettle is so important because some people have the misconception that we receive state monies or federal monies or these other governmental resources. It's never happened yet in those 150 years. Now, we search for certain grants for special projects that we might be doing, so it's not like, but still everything is basically donated money.
Yes.
The whole operation, whether it's local, regional, or national, or international, donated monies from the kindness of people's hearts. So that's huge.
Then the big part of that is that some of the big problems with some of these charities is the excessively high administrative cost.
Very.
And that kind of turns a lot of people off.
Yeah.
So you have to be. There were some stories circulated around about the wounded warriors being heavy in administrative costs. That turned out to be happily, that turned out to be not true.
Sure.
And because that's one of the causes near and dear to my heart.
Right.
And
definitely.
But you can count on the fact that the money you give to the Salvation Army here in Lincoln, Golden County, it's going to stay here in Lincoln, Golden County.
It is. Plus,
except for your very excessive salary, of course.
Oh, that absorbs a lion's share. Over the top.
Dear.
But overall, nationally, or however they do this, we get little flyers, and if you're on the mailing list, you'll see this a couple times a year at least. It shows the breakout, the little pie diagram of how much goes directly into programs, and it's 80-some% go into our programs. So
I bet very few beat you on that.
Very few. We're in the top crust, upper crust of what we're doing, getting all the bang for the buck. The motto of the Salvation Army, at least one of them, is doing the most good. And that's what we're trying to do the most good. When I'm physically myself, I'm out bell ringing, I will thank people as they come to donate, and I said, I'll make you 3 promises. They say, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "We'll pinch every penny, we'll stretch every dollar, but we'll spend it all."
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And it makes for a lighthearted moment, but we need every penny. But we try and stretch that penny, and not pinch it, that was the wrong word, but stretch every penny and make every penny count and do all that we can do. That being said, when I help a family out, rarely do I foot the bill for them. I will help with the bill if they have a need, but I want them to weigh in, so I'm not continuing to help them stay at their level.
Exactly. You're walking a fine line there.
A fine line. And I have to ask sometimes some difficult questions, and maybe sometimes I'm not politically correct. Whatever. No, I'm not trying to foo-foo anyone, but I will ask them initially, I said, "How much of this can you handle?" Fair question. "Well, I can do $35. I said, "Then I'll cover the other 100. And they go, "Oh, thank you. That'll help considerably."
See, but that's a hand up, not a hand out.
Yes.
That's it.
And that's
stretching.
the basis,
the genesis for the whole business of helping people.
And you're ministering to them in different levels, kind of omnidirectional. You're teaching them, you're counseling them, you're undergirding them, you're offering a service, an ear for them. They can, sometimes we get an earful.
I'm sure.
And so we're trying to juggle, again, several things in the 5 minutes that we have, or 10 maybe at the most. So you're trying to, be his ambassador. And that's the main thing that you get through the Salvation Army. We try and minister. Our first and foremost calling is to minister the gospel of Jesus Christ. Many people see it in just the actions, but we don't leave out his word in doing that. We try and point them to a church, get them back connected somewhere. When they walk out the door, we want them to walk out with him and have some hand-in-hand relationship, if at all possible.
We need more of that in our world. I'm afraid we're kind of falling by the wayside.
See, there it is.
Cannot get more basic than that.
Because the money's given us, all we can do with that is return that to them in proportionate ways, but can we do more? Yes, the ministry aspect is more than the physical and the social services that we offer. It includes this other, and so that's what we're hoping to do each time.
Before we get on with our program, we have to hope that we continue to get sponsors, and if we don't honor them right now, we're not going to get that hopeful fulfilled. So go right ahead, James. Right back live in the studio here at WBBM. We broadcast better music. WBBM started right here in Lincoln. I don't think you knew that. That's fact.
On Park Place, where Jim lives.
We broadcast better music. That's exactly what that was. Anyway, WLCN, Viewpoint, program. This is one. Stand by, everybody, for announcement. We have a census taking. There are more than 3 people listening this morning. We just got that in from Nielsen a while ago.
There we go. We're over the top today.
Our guest on Viewpoint this morning, Mr. Tony Shuff. Tony, among other things, busy fellow. He is an administrator. What is your official title with the Salvation Army?
It's
administrator.
Concise. Director. I'm just the director. I get to direct me.
Yeah.
I'm the only employee.
Staff of one.
I asked myself, okay.
And volunteers. Yeah.
What's our direction, director? So
an organization has been in existence in this world since 1865. I found it over in London, England. And Tony says it's been here around 115 years in Logan County, according to information he's picked up from somewhere in the archives. Judy, in public speaking, there are 4 S's. Stand up, speak up, shut up, and sit down.
Yes.
Well, the Salvation Army has 3 S's. Soup, soap, and salvation.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah. He's done some good research.
Covers the waterfront.
All you have to do is just peck around a little bit, do a little inquiring on Wikipedia. That's going to cost me $25 this year again. Wikipedia does a great job for information for those of us who use computers, and they depend upon people appreciating what they do. And so the annual time of the year has come around. I got a request. Would I do another $25? I'm tickled to death to do that. All the information that I get off of Wikipedia, particularly just for this very program, before I come prepared by going that keeps me up all night. Or anyway, Tony's got one all night such too. That his cleaning service. Let's talk about the Keat Center just a minute. We were very blessed to have the Keat family leave a significant amount of money to build what's known as the Keat Center. For what purpose, and how are we doing now?
How are we doing now? We have 3 floors, but that's including the basement, if you want to call that a floor. There's the ground level floor, the administrative level, where we have a community room. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, that was serving the Humane Society. They had a quarterly meeting, a business meeting or something, so that's opened for various functions in the community. We've had the Daughters of the American Revolution used it March of a few years ago. They came in. We've had the Pregnancy Resource Center has used it on more than one occasion. The last time was for their annual Christmas banquet for all their different volunteers. So it has a multiple functionality, I guess. We have a kitchenette, laundry service, and a dining area, as well as our food pantry, kind of off-site, but on that same floor level. A secondary office area there, and all of that goes to serve when we are having someone, well, when we don't presently have someone staying upstairs, but we have emergency transitional center there. We're looking at other avenues of utilizing that living space there as well, so we can get more bang for the buck, so to speak. But also we have food service, not food service, like it's not like we prepare meals, but the food pantry is there, and we're in partnership with a program called Harvest Supply. Locally, one of those vendors is Pizza Hut, and I want to give another hats off to them. Last year I guess the word probably isn't redistributed, but we get some of their pizza that gets pulled, and instead of thrown out, it's frozen for us, and it's from their freezer to our freezer and right to needy people. So we did over $12,000 worth of their pizza just last year.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So sometimes people come in with a need, but they don't qualify here, and they may qualify somewhere else, and we will point them in that direction as a referral, and they thank us, and I said, oh, by the way, does anyone like pizza in your house? Well, usually that stops them in their tracks. Absolutely. They come back and sit down and say, what are you talking about? I said, do you like Pizza Hut pizza? And they said, well, of course. And so I'll give them Ziploc bags, gallon Ziploc bags that we have prepared, and they can walk out with just a boatload.
See, and you're right, everybody likes pizza.
Sure.
Yeah, they do. What's the most frequent requests that you get in this season? People need help with what now?
In this season, some of the largest requests, the 2 largest are for their energy bill or rent assistance. Those are the 2 largest. Now, that being said, if I just took every phone call and every person that walked in the door with one or other of those needs, and I just looked at those 2 needs, and I've tracked it fairly close, not penny by penny, but I would say on a monthly, and that would be, if they needed $500 for rent, and I just wrote them that check, or a voucher, or if it was $600. If I did every one that came in or called in, I would need an extra $50,000 to $60,000 every month. Every month.
Wow.
Seriously. One day from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., this was about a month ago or so, 5 different families or individuals walked through the door, and in that 1 hour, all 5 of them, we said, here's an application for assistance. What is it you need help with today? And they would look up and say 2 words, I or we are homeless. So all five homeless. Well, what are you going to do? You know how much money would have been needed to.
That's a very sobering statement.
Sure.
Just a very sobering statement.
And that happened this fall.
We all go around in our daily lives, those of us who are more fortunate, and very candidly don't give much thought. We're so wrapped up in our own little world to the fact that there is a lot of need out there.
An awful lot.
And to have that statement made over the air is that's very impressive. 648-5510. Somebody might have a question or a comment for Mr. Tony Shuff. Salvation Army is one of those, it's there on the radar, and yet it's kind of pretty quiet on the radar. Mm-hmm. And we go by there on Logan Street every day, and don't think much about it. But the real fact of the matter is that there's a lot going on under this, although it may look deserted.
Right. Well, yesterday, if you would have driven by, the parking lot was full. Of course, I had administrative type meeting going on. We had clients coming in. It was all happening at the same time. So we had 2 or 3 cars in the back, and all 5 or 6 slots in the front were filled too. So it comes and goes day by day. But yes, you don't see everything that's going on behind those doors. Just like we look at the courthouse, it's a nice building, but there's a lot that goes on to the courthouse every day. So behind there, let's say during the summer months, almost every week of the summer, we're doing free summer camps for kids. Every week for 7 weeks. We do at least 7 now. We started when I joined the Salvation Army about 5-6 years ago. We had 1 service extension camp for 1 week. Now we have 7. We've included now a STEM camp, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's what that acronym stands for. That's a whole week. We do a music camp for 8 days, and they have a concert with choir, music, drama, and stuff on a celebration Sunday. That was huge this year. I almost X'd through those and didn't offer those, thinking, well, kids are not wanting to go back into engineering and math, and they don't want school in the middle of summer, and I almost blacklined that. And a couple people saw that and said, oh, what's this? And I said, well, I'm thinking of not doing that or sponsoring that or offering that. Oh, well, my child would be interested. Come to find out, those were the 2 largest attended camps this last summer.
Interesting?
You need a good PR guy. You need a PR. The public doesn't know that we're doing that.
Oh.
Now, you're reaching into some families that would not be on the radar screen in other circumstances.
Correct. Many.
There's no way of knowing the depth of the impression that you're going to have on some youngster somewhere that may have a huge impact on their future.
Someone decided they wanted to help with their extra money. I mean, we're getting a good donation, but it's for that reason. They said because they knew that we were continuing to do these free camps for kids over the summer. That touched their heart that we were doing that. And so it's important for people to understand we will spend at least $10,000 of our budget just to make it free for all these community children that wouldn't have this offered to them anywhere.
No.
Oh, it's great. And we have probably more than one this last year that went to 4 camps.
Is that right?
They loved it so much they signed up. If it was age appropriate, if they were in that age bracket, they were going to the STEM camp, they were going to the music camp, they were going to the sports camp, they were going to anything. And we will start from age 7 to 17 with different age appropriate camps out of those 7 weeks of camp.
How many kids did you have? Was that your first year, last year?
No, I've done it every year since I found out about it. See, I discovered that they were going to systematically pull $10,000 out of my budget for the camp funding. And I thought, well, what if I only have 2 kids? Well, we bumped up to 40 or 50 kids real quick.
Did you?
Oh, yes. I just went out and beat the bushes, and I'll do a little flyer, take-home flyer, try and get to the school board ahead of time in the spring and say, here in April or May, can you okay this? Does this pass your inspection? Send it out to your schools, get it to the classrooms, put it in the backpack so they go home so people know we've got the schedule of these summer camps. All you got to do is either call me. By the way, our number is 217 732-7890 at the office. And right now we're more not there than there because we're out bell ringing.
Doing things, yeah.
So please leave your name and your phone number. We'll get back with you if you want to be a bell ringer, you want to donate, you need to know where to send mail or whatever. We're here for the community, but it's the connecting this, and knowing where we are, knowing what we're doing, and how we can help one another, help others do the most good.
This is absolutely amazing to me. My week, for instance, has 7 days. How many are there in your week?
It is hard to count sometimes because some are day and night. And some days I think I get up in the morning and I have to consciously think what day I'm on right now. It's not too bad. I like being busy. I enjoy the work that we're doing when you're helping other people out. In my former life, not my former life, but I like to do art and I like to minister, and I'm still involved in both of those. I was formerly a pastor for most of my life. I've done missionary work overseas. I had a chance this summer for vacation to go to Russia for 3 weeks.
Did you?
So we have just been trading hats everywhere and connecting the dots. And of course, while we were over there, I tried to iron everything out. No, I'm kidding. Apparently, it didn't take real good.
Now,
I'm kidding.
When you were in Russia, were you there on behalf of the Salvation Army?
Not, you wouldn't say,
were
not
you there
official.
as a missionary?
Yes and no. I was there to relax and vacation, to reconnect the dots, because we did do mission work there 23 years ago, and then returned 21 years ago. My children swam in the Black Sea when they were 5 and 7.
Is that right?
You know, it was that long ago. So we returned to reconnect with old friends, and people are people everywhere, whether it's Thailand, Russia, Zimbabwe, or wherever.
Yes.
And people, everyone who doesn't need to know the Lord. And that connection is a family connection globally that supersedes geopolitical whatever. It just does. They rolled out the red carpet for us. I could not say enough about how we were treated. It was remarkable. We were introduced as the grandparents everywhere we went, because we sowed seed of the gospel there, and we just bawled like babies every place we went. We want you to meet your grandparents, because the ministers that were there were the lives that we had sown into, and then their offspring. Now we were the grandparents of their offspring.
Sure.
So it was historic for me personally, just over the top. So we were there to vacation, but we spoke a couple of times in one of their churches, the home church that had invited us. And you do have to go through a specific invitation, get a religious visa. If you speak publicly without one of those, you're going to be fined severely. So we wanted to do it right.
Well, you know, this is a good lesson to all of us, the way you present this, because we think of this country as being our enemy and that country as being our friend, but they're all composed of all sorts of people.
All sorts,
and
that's
people true. Are people. And now here they were so gracious for you, and you see, we never think in those terms.
No, not at all. So, you know, every country, ours and everyone, we all want to be top dog. We want to be known globally as one of the best. And, you know, my understanding of America is still that.
Yes.
I know our country does offer
no
more,
argument here.
Yeah, right. And I have no difference in my love for America, but I recognize that keeping God's heart is essential if we want. We can't reach and touch someone if we have a prejudice. It shortens our reach. We go, you know, okay, I'm going to, well, there's this pause, this lingering, this, are we going to stretch? Are we really, is that a saying, doing the most good or not? If it's more than that, then we will do all that we can to, and by all means, save some. So we try and do that through the Salvation Army. I wasn't there specifically for them. It was, from what I and we had done 20-some years ago at mission work and reconnecting there. However, we landed first in Moscow, so we did connect with the Moscow Salvation Army, paid a formal visit there, had a wonderful connection with what they are doing and how much they can do. A little more limited than here. Let's put it that way.
That's the question there.
A little more limited.
How much can they do?
They can work with people during the day and trying to help down and out situations find work, get a little rehab if they're involved in alcoholism and drug abuse, counsel, and work a little bit during the days. I don't think they're able to do housing and care for people, like with a transient situation where they need to be off the street. They're limited, not just because of lack of facilities. They just can't go ahead and invest in that if they know that governmentally they're not going to be allowed to do that. Yeah. So they utilize their efforts in Moscow to the best of their ability to still preach the gospel and reach.
You mentioned counseling for alcoholism and drug abuse. Is that quite rampant?
Of course, it pretty much is everywhere anymore, but it's still very prevalent in Russia. The old adage, the Russian vodka, the vodkas, and their sign for it is they thump here with their middle finger, thump under their neck to one side like they're an alcoholic or they want a drink. You see someone do that, they're asking for a drink.
Is that a fact?
Really?
I'm going to have to institute that around my house. Walk into the kitchen and thump my cheek.
we didn't notice it this time, but before we returned back in '96, the summer of '96, before we returned, one of our girl interpreters, young ladies, was getting married, and because it crisscrossed the time of our returning to Moscow, a couple days before we were going to come back home, we were in Moscow. She was getting married that weekend, so my daughter Danielle, who's now 30-ish, she and I went through town on the metro. I could figure my way around town, and I was looking for an art store to frame a painting I had done, a watercolor I had done of one of the lakes there in Moscow, and I wanted to give that to that interpreter. Well, that's the story behind going through town all day before the wedding and going in and out of all these metros and sitting in plazas to take a break and looking. And at one time I said, Danielle, look around, what do you see? And she said, people everywhere, and there were like thousands. And I said, who does not have a bottle?
Oh, really?
That was my next question. Doesn't matter if they were 3 feet tall to 6 feet plus. Every single person that we saw, and I'm not kidding, I could not find anyone that wasn't carrying a brown paper bag or a bottle.
Really?
It was heart-wrenching. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there on a park bench because there's a lot of running. Even though there's a metro, you do a lot of walking in Moscow. And this was 20-some years ago, but I've never forgotten it, and she hasn't either. And she said, Dad, I can't find anyone that doesn't have a bottle. So the answer to that is it's I'm sure still rampant there, but it's probably nearly as bad in a lot of places. But it was
their coping mechanism.
Yes, I'm afraid so. So the best mechanism, of course, is the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we were there then and now at this time and back home here to do two things. When I'm meeting with people as the Salvation Army representative here, I want them to pretty much locate themselves, kind of realize where they are and how they got there. If we can do that in 5 minutes, kind of help them get a grip, and then find themselves and find Him. If I can help break them off the dead center and walk out with some fresh look and fresh understanding that's very available to them in a moment's time. And sometimes people come to Christ right sitting there. Not all of them, but we give them that opportunity. So it's valuable because If I offer them that, then they've got an eternity of answers. I mean, they can have all that they need throughout their journey in life. They can step from where they've been, because their past then cannot dictate their future. It can be broken in a moment, and you know, sometimes you don't get a second chance, but you can always have a fresh start. If I got someone pregnant in my youth, then I don't get a second chance to, undo and correct it. Yeah, just saying as example. But you can always have a fresh start. So I'll leave it with that. It's important that we get the help that we need to reach as many as possible, youth to aged, and the work of the Salvation Army. I'm glad to partner with them.
We sure appreciate your time with us this morning, Tony. I really do. I know your schedules not only is with the Salvation Army, but your own cleaning business is a tough business, so we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Altruism would be a word that might define what we talked about mostly this morning, but there's also the very important word of economics, and that requires money to be altruistic.
Yes.
So perhaps folks, if they haven't decided what they want to do with some of their estate, they might want to talk to their lawyers about including the Salvation Army in their going away plans.
There we go.
Well, I try to close the Viewpoint with something that refers to the subject matter of the day. St. Thomas Aquinas said, "There are three things that are necessary for the salvation of men: to know what he ought to believe, to know what he ought to desire, to know what he ought to do." Thank you, Tony Shuff, very much.
Thank you both.
That was a beautiful thing.